Alrighty, so mine is a bit more personal, but like what we asked many UNT students while interviewing them, have you ever experienced food insecurity yourself that has inspired you to coordinate the food pantry?
Yeah, I have experienced food insecurity both like as a child and as an adult. I actually used the food pantry when I was a freshman at UNT, so that's how I initially got involved and got interested in working with the food pantry.
How did you find out about the food pantry when you were a UNT student?
My roommate also knew about it, so I don't know if we saw it at a resource fair or if she knew about it and told me, and then we visited it together.
Okay, cool. Somebody else can go.
Okay, I'll go. How do y'all measure like how the food pantry meets the needs of students?
So we send out a survey at the end of every year to the people who use our pantry to get a pulse of like if their needs are being met. And then we also on our intake form ask some questions like what kind of need are you expecting that the pantry will serve? So that's how we measure based on like the students who already come and visit us. And then if we're out at different resource fairs and things like that, we'll just kind of communicate with students about what they think the food pantry could help them with or what they would want to see in the food pantry. Yeah.
Has there been a moment in your career doing this that really made you realize how important the campus food pantry is?
There's been a few specific students who have just been like, thank you for existing, like this is so awesome that we have the pantry. And then like I said, I have that survey at the end of the year, so just kind of reading through like the different stories that people have. So I don't think there's like one specific instance, it's just like a collective, like all the experiences that people share with me just add up and make us realize like how important the work we do is. Yeah.
How does the pantry currently promote its services to students?
So we go to different resource fairs. We try to go to all of like the freshman orientation resource fairs and the graduate student orientation resource fairs. And then like the various ones that happen around campus, especially like at the library mall or at the union where students are gonna be there anyway, so that they happen to sit by our table. We also use Instagram and Facebook as our primary social media. And get the UNT account to tag us or share our stuff as much as possible just so that the students who are interacting with their content can see us. And then we use things like the UNT newsletter that goes to students weekly to share information about our resources. Yes.
So it's kind of following up on that question. As I was interviewing students, they were very unaware of where exactly the food pantry is. Why do you think students at UNT are not aware of the location of the food pantry?
There's a lot of information that goes out to students when they start here and while they're here. So I think that no matter how often we tell students about us, it can get lost in translation just with all the other information that they're getting. And that's, not just something I've heard from people using the food pantry, but also people using other UNT resources. Like, oh, I didn't know this existed. So yeah, we just do our best to try to break the stigma as much as possible and keep sharing with people in that way. We'll go to you first.
When I was asking students questions at the Willis Library about the UNT food pantry, I asked if they knew about it or ever took advantage of it. Most of them knew about it but never used it. So my question is, how many average people go to the UNT food pantry?
Yeah, so we see about 600 to 700 students per week on average. Sometimes that number has gotten as high as 850 students. Last semester, or last year alone, we saw 4,500 students that were utilizing our service. Yeah.
Where does the food come from? Is it like strictly donations or is there another source?
Yeah, all of our money is donated and all of our food is donated in that way. So any civilian, student, staff member can donate to the food pantry. We also get a large donation from the Tarrant Area Food Bank once a week. And we have money as a grant from Kroger. And so I'm able to use that money with like a purchasing card and go to grocery stores and buy food for the pantry. And then we also have what we call campus monthly sponsors, which are different departments on campus who use their own resources to supply donations to the food pantry.
You mentioned those intake forms. Do y'all also use those to account for like dietary restrictions,
Mhm.
like pork and dairy?
Yeah, we asked that as well.
Do y'all have like a lot of food that accounts for those? Or-
Yeah, so the biggest dietary restriction we have is no pork specifically. And then we have a good amount of people are vegetarian. So we try to make sure to have vegetarian options. And I never buy pork products because I know so many of our students don't utilize it. And we have a few that are like sugar-free or like gluten-free. So we try to find options that'll suit their needs as well. Yeah.
You mentioned that you buy food for the pantry using that grant money. Do you find y'all do well enough with donations, or are you usually buying most of the food?
It kind of depends on what it is. So donations-wise, we get just kind of a mix of different things, like just all sorts of things: oatmeal, ramen, mac and cheese, maybe like a random Pop-Tart sometimes, and then from the food bank, we get a lot of produce items. So what I'm mainly using the money for is to keep staple items, so like mac and cheese, rice, pasta, like canned protein and canned vegetables. So the money we use is mostly just to have at least a staple like baseline stock.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do y'all get a lot of leftovers, and if you do, like what happens with them?
So I mean, we're open all the time, so there's not really things that we ever throw away.
Like I mean, like at the end of semester.
Oh, so we're open over the summer too, so it would just kind of roll over into the next. Sometimes like our produce will go bad, and we have implemented like a Thursday produce all call, so anyone can come and just grab produce for free. That's about to go bad off the shelf. And then if things expire, we have like procedures in place that we can still give out some things that are expired. And then we always put things that are expiring soon on the shelf first before things expire later. Yeah, doesn't matter.
Is there a max limit of items people can get from the food pantry before they leave to make sure that it stays in stock for other students that have to come through?
Yeah, so we don't give a total number, but each type of item we give a limit. So like we have an instant meals section. So like right now, I think you can get 3 from there. And we choose those we refresh those numbers on every Monday just based on like our stock, so that anyone who comes that week can get 3 instant meals. But that way we're not running out before the end of the week if we did something like 5.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What, I heard you mention intake forms. What happens if somebody just shows up at the pantry? Can they fill out that form on the spot?
Yeah, so we have a QR code where students can fill out the form, and then we also have a paper version if they're unable to access it through technology.
What accommodations is the pantry able to offer for students who may have mobility issues and have trouble accessing the location of the pantry?
Yeah, so we, all of our like hallways and the pantry itself are ADA compliant. We have the ramp that goes up the back side of the building, and then they can also enter through the front side of the building. And then we've also had students come through the pantry who have like sight restrictions as well, and we'd be able to like walk them through the pantry and explain what items we have, and they can tell us which items they want to get. Yeah.
What do you think makes the food pantry such a good environment that makes people want to go into there and sign up for the food pantry?
Yeah, I mean, at the root of it, it's a free resource, and food is vital to like our well-being. And I think that we try to have as much variety and cater to as many different types of students as possible. So like with the dietary restrictions, with different, like if you're in an apartment or a dorm, like we have things that don't require cooking. And then I think, I mean, we try to build as much of a like welcoming environment as possible. I think it looks really nice in there, like it's painted really well, and it's organized really well. So I think at the base of it, if you need food, you're gonna go get it where you can. But we try to also be welcoming to students Yeah. Yeah.
Would the pantry be able to support, like, let's say a student that also has like children, so would they be able to go in and get food for both themselves and also their child?
Yeah, so we say you have to be a student to use the food pantry. We do have a handful of students who are parents, and they bring their kids with them and like let their kids pick out. The only thing we can't have them grab more items for their kids just because we want to make sure we're serving as many students as possible. And then the other thing we do is provide other resources in the area that are better catered to like families with children, so that they're still getting enough resources for their children as well. Yeah.
Have the caps and gowns always been rentable at the food pantry, and what transpired to make this happen?
Yeah, I believe the gowns have been around longer than the food pantry, and started as a pretty small program. But they've always been within the Dean of Students office, and then we kind of merged the two together last year, 2 years ago almost. And so that was because we, especially in the Dean of Students office, were working with students who are financially insecure in a variety of ways. And we were seeing students who wouldn't attend graduation because they couldn't afford the cap and gown. And then we got a kind of a surprise donation of money to buy caps and gowns. And then we kind of had the idea to just rent those out every semester to students in need. And it's just grown from there, especially from a sustainability perspective as well, because caps and gowns are made out of like forever chemicals and plastics. So now if someone thinks about throwing it away, they can donate it instead and help, we say, help a future eagle walk the stage.
You guys, please remember, I want everybody to ask a question. So if you haven't had a chance to ask a question, make sure you do.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of the biggest challenges with running the food pantry?
Yeah, I think the demand is hard because we never know what to expect. With especially last year, UNT's enrollment went up pretty high, and our demand just kept increasing. And I think it's something that we're able to meet. It's just that pivoting and figuring out how to meet the demand. And then it's also been hard to kind of keep a lot of the more popular nutritious items like produce, eggs, milk, because our fridge, freezer space is very limited. So we found different ways to increase the amount of produce we can give out, and we've been able to actually give out eggs even though there's a shortage. But things like that are just kind of logistically complicated. Would you know? Yeah.
How do you envision the food pantry evolving in the next few years to better meet the needs of our community?
Yeah. Well, our grant with Kroger is almost up, and so we're trying to renew it with them, and I think that can bring some new and exciting things. We've talked about expanding that fridge and freezer option. That would be a pretty big undertaking, but if that can happen in a few years, that'd be awesome. And then just expanding our partnerships, especially on campus with different departments and student organizations that are able to support the food pantry.